The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Kev, at some stage in your life, my dad always said this to me, and I always thought, no, he's talking nonsense. But at some stage in your life, when the police officers start looking like you could be their dad, you know that you're somewhat aging. I always sort of compare that to pilots. And I was walking through Munich Airport, and I'm telling you, Kev, they look like they could be in elementary school.
Yeah, getting younger, isn't they?
But we took this flight with... have you ever flown Lufthansa? You probably have, because you're an international jet setter. What do you think of the airline?
Oh, they're right. They're the BA of Germany, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I think they're in the Star Alliance, aren't they? Which means they're all in the same sort of group, I think. I think maybe. I'm right. You know. This captain, though, there's something about getting on an airliner where you look left and there is a grey sitting in the cockpit. Captain smooth, captain organised, captain on time. He was I say visibly, audibly upset that we pushed back from the gate a little bit late. It wasn't efficient, and I know that sounds like a cliche, but boy was he good. When we flew, we landed at Heathrow in one of these. What are you doing back in the UK here? There's gales everywhere.
Well, it's been awful, hasn't it? I took the kids to Weston-super-Mare on Wednesday. It was old women rolling down the street. It was brilliant.
Old women rolling down the street. We were coming into land. I'm telling you, I've never been in an aircraft where its wings are just go left to right to left to right to left to right, and I thought. I was a bit excited actually, Kev. I thought we were going to I've never been in an aircraft where I've had a go-around. Have you ever had a go-around?
I have, yeah, during the Beast from the East.
Okay, so tell me what that feels like.
Well, oddly okay, because you don't really know it's going to happen, but we were basically about 50 feet above the runway when it decided to go back up. Oh. And I was sat opposite the air hostess woman, and she looked out the window. She looked at me. She said, "Oh, I love a good go around. I do."
Well, that's what I was hoping for. The passenger in front of me was hyperventilating into the sick bag, going, "Oh no, oh no, oh no." It doesn't make you feel very good. And I turned to Thomas and I said, This is going to be our go around. I tell you what, Captain Efficient, he put it down on the ground, no probs at all.
The FujiCast.
I'm telling you, Lufthansa, if I could fly everywhere in the world with them, I would go everywhere in the world with them. What an airline!
Good. I'm glad you didn't have a bumpy landing.
No, it was. There were go-arounds happening everywhere, but not with us. But
there were some great videos on the BBC website.
Oh, were there?
With planes. It always seems to be Manchester Airport. I don't know why, but coming in and then basically going, "Oh no, let's go back."
I wonder if a pilot in the morning, if as a pilot you look out and think, "Oh God, I can't bear this. I'm having a duvet day," or do they enjoy it? Do you think they enjoy the challenge?
I bet they do enjoy it, because it basically takeoff and landing is the only bit really that they do anything, isn't it? So it's probably a little bit exciting for them, I would imagine.
I'll tell you what, your British Airways mate would say to you right now, say, "Mullins, we do not just sit there picking our nose for an hour and a half to 4 hours, whatever the flight is."
Oh, he would.
Would he?
He would. He once told me, he said, he said the only thing he likes it when turbulence happens when they're cruising, because it means he can play with putting the lid on his coffee and taking it off again.
It's nice to know that captains are taking it that seriously. Lid on, lid off, lid on. Welcome to the FujiCast. Here we are. Another couple of weeks have passed. On the show, your questions about Fuji, well, not just about Fujifilm cameras, and it's about photographic life as well, but don't you dare send us questions about Sony's. Kevin will have a nosebleed.
There's been a couple of monochrome cameras launched this week, though, I have to say. The new Leica M11, which I think is about £36,000.
That's just the case. That's just the case, Kev.
Ricoh, I think, loaded a... Was it Ricoh?
Ricoh?
Yeah, I think it was.
Oh, well, I didn't know about this one.
Maybe it wasn't Ricoh. Pentax.
Pentax?
Was it Pentax?
What? A dedicated monochrome camera from Pentax?
Yeah, so, DPReview has been closed because Amazon are closing it down.
Well, I heard about that. I only heard about that in the last few days, and I thought, what, DPReview? Can't be. Surely not.
Yeah, they're closing it down. But actually, the reason why I know that this is Ricoh announced a monochrome camera, and I saw the link on DPReview, and I thought, DPReview is meant to have closed now, but they're holding off. They're trying to archive. They're basically leaving it live while they can make a backup of the website and archive it for people to look at later.
So will there? So it sounds like there's going to be a situation where the plug will be pulled, and there won't be anything there to look. Well, I'm sure I looked something up on DPReview only the other day.
Yeah. So the plan was on the 14th of April, I think it was 14th, might be in the 11th. It was just going to disappear, and everybody was really annoyed. Obviously, super angry. I get a lot of traffic to my website from the forums and DPReview, so I was equally angry.
Yeah, I bet.
And I'm just looking at the update now. We've received a lot of questions about what's next for the site. We hear your concerns about losing the content that has been carefully curated over the years and want to assure you that the content will remain available as an archive.
Right.
So there you go. They're going to keep it basically online as an archive, which is good. But going forward, I don't think there's going to be many updates. However, that said, I then did see that there was this Ricoh Pentax K3 Mark III monochrome camera, closely followed by or should I say, so Ricoh got their monochrome announcement in about 12 hours before Leica M11 monochrome was announced. Oh. But I think it's interesting. I do hope the powers that be at Fujifilm are listening. I mean, not so much the Leica one, because that's been around for a while, the monochrome, all beautiful that it looks. But Ricoh, now that's kind of out of the left field, isn't it? Ricoh coming out with a monochrome DSLR, a DSLR as well.
What is it? I mean, the market share of Ricoh has soared, hasn't it? Thanks to cameras like the GR3 and the one that's superseded that. Yeah, so I mean, it's technically a Pentax camera. So Ricoh are basically branding it out with the Pentax stuff. So yeah, the GR3 and everything is super popular, especially for street photography. Yeah. But the Pentax is a DSLR big old camera, kind of back to your old traditional camera, but with a monochrome sensor. Oh. I haven't seen any samples though. But yeah, I mean, come on, Fujifilm, you need to pull your monochrome films out. You've always said to me that there's no way that would happen.
I don't think I've ever said there's no way that would happen, because I know for a fact there are people very high up at Fujifilm who would like it to happen.
Am I misquoting you?
But no, probably just lost in translation, I would have thought. But I think it's very unlikely, just because the cost of it and the actual return on investment, I think, would be minimal. But I've always kind of hoped that they would perhaps do a anniversary edition or a limited edition, and if Leica can, I mean, I guessed about £36,000 for the Leica. I don't know. I'm looking on DPReview now to see if there is a price. Okay, so $9,195 US. So body only. So people do buy. People do pay that kind of money, and I think I would say that if I was a brave Fujifilm exec, I'd be going, yeah, let's do it. Although I'd probably want to be towards the end of my career and have a good pension pot.
It took the let's do it crowd, didn't it, to launch the X100? So they were the days of saying, caution to the wind, come on, we'll do this thing, and then look what happened.
Yeah.
And I get Leica, because and the sales that it would make, and those that would invest in a monochrome camera, because they have that kind of audience base, don't they? That are prepared to buy the latest and greatest new expensive camera. Yeah. Well, do Fujifilm have that? They have the audience base, but do they have that audience base?
I think they do. Yeah, it wouldn't be a high flying seller, but I don't think that Leica monochrome is either. But there you go. There's always people. I certainly couldn't afford and wouldn't pay $10,000 for a Leica monochrome, but there are plenty of people that will do it. And good luck to them. It looks beautiful, I have to say. I'm looking at the pictures now.
Oh, yeah. Are you salivating? Are you rubbing your knees?
I'm masticating.
Don't be rude. Quite right, Donald. Get back in your box.
Yeah, no, it does look very nice.
I tell you, just before we start, I had the street experience that we've been talking about so much in Austria while I was away. The experience of I've always thought Alex Frederickson, and she's appeared on the other little podcast.
We've had her on our show as well.
Yeah, that's right. We have. Yeah. And she's always said, well, to us both, Kev, we've had the conversation about street photography in Austria and the rules of privacy there, and the fact you can't take a picture of somebody who might knowingly recognise themselves. And I didn't realise, actually, by the way, it goes a step further, as Alex said, that if you make a picture and, say, a relative or friend of said person you've taken a picture of recognises and passes that picture to them, you can be in a lot of trouble. And we were taking some pictures on the platform at Schladming Station. You know how Thomas loves his trains. And I kid you not, as the driver pulled out in this huge intercity train they have, he hid down below the controls. And then as it went past, because I was slightly back from Thomas, as it went past, he popped back up again as it gone past Thomas's camera. And I thought, whoa. Well, because,
a sad state of affairs.
Well, I mean, privacy is something they take very seriously, but a train driver with a kid taking a picture? I know some countries don't understand train spotting. I think the UK and America are some of the only places that do it, unless you're about to correct us. But yeah,
No, well, I still think it's sad. I mean, I think it's sad for little Thomas. You know, he likes to have his drivers in his pictures, doesn't he?
Yeah, well,
that's important. Yeah. It's not going to do him any harm, is it?
In America, they pop their heads out the window and good
wave a flag,
pull on the horn. Oh, they love it. And the UK, very much the same. Most of the drivers are like, you're waving away. But there we go. I thought, oh no, please let that not be something that's going to spread. But there we go. Right, question. We should get to questions. We'll do our mention for pick time in a little while, of course. Unless you've got any AOB, as they say at the church meeting. No. Right. Let's.
Well, actually, yes. We should actually do the new patrons while we're talking about it.
Go on then.
Because it's that time. So thank you to all the people who do support us on Patreon. If you don't, you are not obliged to, but if you do, you will then get the Patron pop-up show.
Yes.
Which is where we do gentle critiques and reviews and just chit-chat and stuff of things people send in.
It's not so gentle. Kev laid into the last one. Should have heard him. He was on one.
So thank you very much to Raphael Lenhan, Michelle Hook, Torsten Troutvine, Donald Rigvar, Kelly Mitchell. Proper complicated names this time.
Well, apart from Kelly Mitchell.
Well, Kelly Mitchell, yeah.
That didn't challenge. Kelly Mitchell in EastEnders, yeah. Didn't she own the pub? Right, questions. Do you want to start from Facebook?
Yeah. This is from Klaus. He's a train driver in Austria, and he says...
Don't take my picture.
Okay, so time on a tradition. I will start with the most recent post on the Facebook group, and this comes from Daniel Kiss, and it actually directs it directly to me, but I think it's relevant to both of us. It says, Kevin Mullins, can you share your sharpening method progress? Your images are always so crispy. We have talked about this a lot, and so we'll be brief, I think. But sharpening-wise, I typically just do output sharpening. That's why it's called output sharpening. On the export dialog in Lightroom, choose screen, or if it's going to paper, matted. If I'm printed to matted paper or glossy paper. I rarely do any sharpening itself within Lightroom, with the exception of if there is an image that either I've missed the focus or it's a little bit soft or whatever. And now I will use Topaz, whatever it's called, Topaz Sharpen.
Oh, wait a minute. So you do the output sharpening from within the camera? You don't?
No. Lightroom, at the end of Lightroom when I'm exporting from Lightroom.
Oh, you confused me because you said you rarely do it in Lightroom.
I rarely do it on the sliders in Lightroom. I do it on export.
Yeah, that's the same as I do.
Yeah. So
I used to have it set up for different ISO ranges according to how much sharpening an ISO range could take. I've stopped doing that though.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that the way that we do it is the best way to do it, but it's if you're looking at my images, Daniel, and you think they're so crispy, that's basically all that's happening. Yeah. You might be seeing a little bit of the clarity and the texture sliders that I will use, especially in the black and white stuff. So when that's going on in the editing, that might be being used. But in terms of sharpening itself, I think.
Did we not have a conversation of late Slepsin sensor might not have had it, but where we were both agreeing that we were sometimes not bothering with any sharpening.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you and I both use Lightroom, so Lightroom will apply some sharpening.
Yeah, but we were laying that off, weren't we, on the import?
Yeah, that's right. So depending on which camera you're using, depends on how much it will apply as a default, 40 or 25 generally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it doesn't really go through my thought process unless I'm doing some prints, which I never do anymore because that all goes through PicTime. But unless I'm doing some prints myself manually, in which case I'll just kind of choose the paper source. But that's it. Yeah, I feel like sometimes people kind of get over obsessive with sharp images, sharpness, and all of that stuff, you know. And you know, to be honest with you, most people will be looking at these images on smallish screens, tablets, phones, all that kind of stuff. Very few people will be looking on big high res 4 or 5 or even 6K monitors these days, or screens. That doesn't mean you shouldn't look after the sharpening and make sure it's nice, but you know, it's not. I'm not a fine art photographer, so you know, I'm not selling high-end prints or anything like that. So it's not something that really comes into my workflow too much.
I was in a gallery a couple of weeks ago, and I was looking at, you know what I'm going to say, all the wonderful print pictures. And I always do that, push my nose up against the glass almost thing, and hardly any of it's really very sharp. And that's what often we're aspiring to.
Well, I mean, it's a digital world, isn't it? So, you know, kind of...
Well, it might be a digital world, but most people spend half their time putting grain back in.
Yeah, well, exactly that, yeah. And interestingly, I'm doing there's a lady in church whose son sadly died when he was 20. So this was 20 years ago.
Right.
And I offered to scan her. She's got a load of 6x4s.
Yeah.
Scan her 6x4s. Yeah. She said, "Oh, can you do those for me?" I said, "Yeah, of course." Little did I know there would be about 5,000 of them. So I'm working my way through them. But they're beautiful pictures, and they're literally, you know, like snapshots, but snapshots of everyday life. Overexposed ones, underexposed ones, blurry ones, brilliant ones, and it you know, it's really taught me a lesson actually about the continuation of taking pictures. You know, and it's a brutal story, and it's all in a timeline as well. So I'm currently at the point of the funeral. I've had to take a break actually for a couple of days because it's, you know, it's quite hard going. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing. But all of these pictures are in a book, and obviously she wants them digitized because, you know, should anything happen to the books, and you know, and she's handwritten notes on them all, and it's an amazing archive. You know, but it does make me think. Actually, you know, we spend probably way too much time perfecting images rather than just enjoying taking them. Yeah. And I'm as guilty as everybody for that. So yeah, since I've been doing this, I've been purposely taking my X100V with me and just, you know, sticking on black and white JPEGs only, and just not even worrying about about what I'm taking pictures of. Just that I am taking pictures of stuff that interests me.
I found that the 365, which I've broadly kept up with, I'm only a couple of days out here and there, has been a really good lesson in just making pictures. I spoke to somebody recently who said they wouldn't want to make pictures if it ended up just being pictures of twigs, essentially. And I get that. I do get that. And I've been taking pictures of twigs. I've been just taking pictures of just stuff that goes on around me, and sometimes it's twigs and sometimes it's a lot more artistic, but it has been a really good discipline to make sure I pick the camera up every day, and I've ended up with so much more than I've published.
Well, don't dismiss the twigs. I mean, one of Matt Stewart's most famous pictures is a picture of a leaf on a pavement.
Is it?
Yeah, it looks like a smiley face. Well, it looks like smiley pair of lips.
You talked about that in a conversation with him.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. I remember that, yeah. Oh, yes, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. Just search for Matt Stewart and you'll see it. It's actually on the cover of his amazing book, Think Like a Street Photographer.
Right. Well, there we go. I had the discipline of picking up a camera every day and thinking, right, this does not have to be something that will hang in a big gallery. It just needs to be. It's a bit like what's that website, Kev? It's nice. Not it's nice that the Daily Nice. Oh, I think it's
Daily Nice.
Yeah.
That's lovely, that, isn't it?
I love the Daily Nice. Today, let me look at the Daily Nice. Go on, let's see what we both think of the Daily Nice. Daily Nice, which is thedailynice.com. Today it is, and just one picture loads.
Paper aeroplane.
It's a paper aeroplane. Oh, it's a little balsa wood one, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, it's not going to set the world alight, is it? But that's probably something that means something to him. That's made him smile.
And what I like about that is there's no going back and forth. You can't go to yesterday's picture or anything like that.
There's
no kind of links. There's no about me. There's nothing. It's just called the Daily Nice, and here's a picture.
I've approached Jason so many times, Jason Evans, to try and get a chat, but he's a bit like Banksy. It seems to me he's very difficult to find. Right, here is one from Rosemary Minto, who is in New Zealand. Hi from New Zealand. I'm a newbie serious hobbyist urban photographer. There's a long title. And so far I've only used a Canon 80D DSLR, which is far too heavy and loud. I'm looking at the XT5 as it meets all my requirements, lighter, faster, weather-sealed, prettier. But I'm worried it will be a huge adjustment not having an optical viewfinder. I do like the idea of the tilting frame as the Canon has the flip-out screen that I struggle to frame a scene in. It's just not intuitive to look to my left. Although, weirdly, I am a left-eye shooter. You're a left-eye. Are you a left-eye shooter? No, I am.
No,
you're a right-eye. My question, do you still use an optical viewfinder? And if not, how long did you find making the change? Loving the podcast. Please don't stop.
Well, optical viewfinder. Yeah, I used to shoot Canon also, and in those days there was no Canon mirrorless, so it was all optical. When the X100, the original X100 came along, I did use the optical for a bit because it was quicker.
That original EVF in the X100 was just felt sluggish, didn't it?
Yeah, it was sluggish. Yeah, and you'd end up with a lag from the shoot, and the same was true of the X Pro 1 and to a certain extent X Pro 2. But yeah, pretty much from X Pro 2 onwards, I properly stopped using the optical viewfinder, with the exception of low light stuff, first dance, that kind of thing. I would switch to the optical viewfinder then. But now with the modern XT5 and all of the jiggery pokery that goes on there,
big EVF.
I don't miss the EVF, the OVF, and in the X Pro 3 when I use that, I don't use the OVF. Very rarely, maybe just from a nostalgic point of view.
I can't remember the last time I flicked that switch in the X100V, that's for sure.
Yeah, part of me wonders whether that's why we're not seeing a new update to the X Pro from Fujifilm, or certainly doesn't seem to be like one in the rumour mill or anything. Yeah. And I wonder if that's because they realise that people aren't really using the optical viewfinder. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that do, by the way, but and that is the differentiating factor, isn't it, of that camera?
Yeah.
So yeah, I wonder if there's kind of internal conversations about that going on.
I'm reading through Rosemary's email here and thinking, why would you need your optical viewfinder now that you can see the world exposed correctly through your EVF? I mean, I suppose it's a change of. It's not a complete change of direction. It's
a paradigm change, isn't it? And for some people, that's quite difficult. And I get it. I totally understand it if that's the way you're used to seeing through the lens and setting your exposure manually, mostly in those cases. I get it. It is a big difference. It is a big change, but I think it's a change for the good.
Yeah, and you'll soon, as anybody who's swapped to, well, I say anybody loosely, who's swapped into mirrorless will find very, very quickly you think, oh, right, okay, I can see what I'm shooting. Fantastic. Why do I need, the only time I don't enjoy the EVF is if and I don't do this very often. You do actually, so you might well have a thought on this, is when I go into a studio condition and I'm not looking through glass, I'm looking through an EVF that's having to boost a signal, as it were, to show me what's happening from a modelling lamp. Yeah,
fair enough. I mean, I did a studio shoot yesterday afternoon using GFX, and because I'm using continuous lighting,
it makes no difference.
Really relevant. No. But if you're using flash, I mean, you do have the preview options now to switch it off. But yes, perhaps that might be an example when an optical viewfinder might be more relevant, especially if you're really kind of up to date with your flash skills.
But you'll know what I mean. It's not that clear, defined image you see through an OVF when you're working in the studio with flash. If you're at, say, 100 ISO, 1/2 at f8, you know, that setting that you pull out the book on the first day of moving into a flash, it doesn't for me feel as comfortable. That's for sure. Anyway, right, we should hear from our guest. This with the next couple of editions, we've got Mr. Whisper, and honestly, Kev, he is one of the kindest, most generous street photographers I think I've ever spoken to. Had an absolute blast talking with him. Here is Mr. You're supposed to say Whisper, Kev.
Oh, sorry, Whisper.
Play the game. So, Mr. Whisper, presumably, I'm thinking the whisper comes from this ability to be a quiet presence within the scenes you photograph. You sort of fall away into the shadows, Bal, or you're conspicuously inconspicuous, if there could be such a thing.
Well, I would love to agree with that answer, but and it kind of like you've just said, it works completely with for what I'm using it now for my street photography and my photography in general. Yeah. However, the name was really born way back before I think in my college days when I used to do a bit of graffiti, and it was my graffiti tag back in the day. So. You know, I used it back then. I really liked it as just like a kind of artistic name. And then, you know, I went to art college and I was doing other stuff. But then it was when social media came about. And, you know, I was heavily into social media. It was part of my job. Yeah. But I didn't trust the internet. So I didn't want to use my real name. So, you know, it felt right to bring Mr. Whisper back and kind of use it on Twitter, Instagram, or any of the platforms that I was exploring. Yeah. And yeah, lo and behold, it's worked really well. It obviously resonates with people, which is really nice. And I just like the sound of it.
Yeah, and, because I kept playing with it in my mind. I thought maybe it's the marriage with low light, Mr. Whisper. I like that, the quiet of the night. So we all build our own narratives around it, don't we? It's interesting that you're somebody who now engages, embraces, and you know, you and the internet are you are married, you're intertwined, but it was something you didn't trust at all. Why didn't you trust it?
Well, it was just the fact that, you know, social media was all about kind of sharing lots of information with people that you'd never shared before, you know, like what the inside of your home might look like, what your house looks like, or where you were at a certain particular time. And for me, just being the very kind of cautious person that I am, I just thought, and for, you know, it was part of my work to explore all the different social networks. So, you know, just briefly, I worked as a creative director previously in advertising. Yeah. So thrown into like the beginnings of social media, and I was completely hooked. I really enjoyed the idea of, you know, it no longer being advertising, but it being, you know, people's actual words and voices being heard to sell products, which felt a bit more truthful. But besides that, it was the fact that I you know, because I was exploring all these platforms, I didn't want to use my name. So yeah, Mr. Whisper felt like the right thing to do. And
I like it. While we're talking about your starts and social coming of age, as it were, you're the product, or at least your life as a photographer is a product of the excitement around Instagram, because it launched. You launched.
Yes.
Would it be fair to say the platform just accelerated this journey? Because I'm imagining working in advertising as you were. You might have been shooting to a degree already, or weren't you?
No, not at all. I was totally not against photography. You know, I'd always, you know, people had always said to me that, you should have a camera on you, you know, at all times. It's what creative directors do. And I just, you know, I was always happy with my phone. I was like, I can take notes with it. I loved the kind of more functionality based around it. But I guess it was the fact that through Instagram, it just made photography so kind of open to everyone. I felt it didn't matter what equipment you were using. You could use something as simple as a phone, or you could use, your big camera, which you were used to using with whichever lens you wanted to. Yeah. That just felt very inviting for me. So, I just started, I was experimenting with various styles, but my main time to shoot was on my commute to work, to and from the office. And I just found, there were these endless stories to be told on the London Underground. Yeah. And I got really hooked with it's very close proximity. There's there's no getting away with the shot if you get caught. You're there and you're on a tube. But there was an immense like adrenaline rush, which related back to like my kind of graffiti days of like, did you get it? Didn't you get it? And then it was that which got me hooked onto it. And then the community of Instagram was incredibly encouraging, and I just continued to do this with a newfound passion for, like, I guess it was candid street photography, and then from there it just grew. Community encouraged me to do more. I was posting every day. Until some point, brands started to get in touch with me, and I was kind of blown away. I was like, here I am working in advertising, working with these brands, and now like the likes of Adidas, Lonely Planet. I know. They got in touch, and I was like, hold on a minute, this is just such a dream scenario for me, being a creative in the industry, not having to go through all the red tape of, all the various rounds of concepts, and, an idea being amazing to something that couldn't, when it's conceived, not so great. Now it's just me, the client, and my creative vision. Like, I was like, I could be onto something here. So, armed simply with my smartphone for the first 2 years, I quit my full-time job and freelanced to do a transition and test out the waters of this newfound world. But, I was well versed in dealing with clients, understanding what their problems were, and coming up with some really nice creative solutions for both of us. One example was for the launch of a new the iPhone, and it was with Vodafone. They came to me and they said, oh, wouldn't it be great for you to shoot the London Eye with the new iPhone, showing some amazing perspectives. And I'm sure I had just recently been on the London Eye. It's a very common thing as well. So I'm always keen to try and get something unique or something a little bit different. I know it's very difficult. I still strive. If I go to a landmark, I'm really going to try and get something that you've not seen before. So with that kind of head on, I went back to Vodafone and I said, look, wouldn't it be more amazing if we got into a helicopter and flew over the city and then took some shots? That would really show how good it was. And so it was, examples like that where I was able to implement some of my past advertising experience, coupled with my passion for like trying to get newfound shots of the city, which was just such an exciting journey.
I would imagine the democracy was great as well, because you'd been used to working in agencies where you had to pass the idea past a focus group, and then a director, and then a creative director, and then the client, and now you're on your own. You are everything. You're the photographer, you're the conceptual artist, you're the fixer, you're everything, aren't you? The director of photography with the iPhone.
Yeah, that's it. And it was, that continued for like 2 years, because I was really focused. After, I had worked at Samsung, so I was really into smartphone technology and how much you could do with them. Hence, being a smartphone photographer, I had like the full suite of apps, being able to edit stuff fully as if I had like a full like Adobe suite on my phone. And this was back in 2014 or 12 even, because, I went on then to do like the Brazil World Cup with Adidas and other things just with my phone. And it was only when I did a project with Lacoste, and that was with my phone, and then they came back to me and said, we'd love to use this in a much wider campaign. We love the photography. Are we able to display it in our stores across Europe? But being an iPhone of that date, you couldn't go much bigger than an A4 piece of paper, sadly. So it was literally, I think the next day I went out to buy a Sony camera actually. And then the XT1 had just come out, And the guy in the store showed me that. My friend, who was like, you always, when you're buying your first camera, you go with that expert guy who knows everything about cameras. So my friend Gus came with me, and he was just, he'd had a Canon. He was thinking about doing the transition to Sony because it was the big thing. And I looked at the Sony, felt the Sony, didn't feel any kind of connection with it. But, I was like, what do I know about cameras? But then the XT1 came out, and I was like, wow, this is what a camera should look like. This is how it should feel. And just I think the aesthetics blew me away. Being such a designer at heart, I was just like, this is beautiful. I'd happily wear this around my neck every day of my life.
Can I rewind just a little bit for the Instagram story, which does fascinate me, because you were writing there at the start. What was it like at the start? Because there were less rules on how you could advertise on the medium. And how you represented yourself and how you represented clients' work. What was it like? It must have been, you were trailblazing, if I can use that word.
It was very exciting. It was absolutely unheard of, to be honest, because, like I said, at the same time, I had been a creative director for 12 years. Well, worked my way up to that title. And I was freelancing for the first 2 years of that as I was transitioning. So I knew that I had an incredible creative director portfolio out there ready to do freelance work. But at the same time, I was posting photos on Instagram. And these photos on Instagram were probably generating like 3 or 4 jobs a week.
Wow.
Which then I had to pick and choose very kind of carefully what brands I wanted to associate with, which brands had the options to expand projects. And, it would be a really good brand association for me. That time was like, when we watch Mad Men on TV, that was the heyday of advertising. I guess my heyday of like photography and kind of, why I was really attracted to this, just such creative potential.
Right place, right time. Would you do it differently now?
No, not at all. I'm so happy with everything that I've been through, the things that I've been able to experience, and just really excited as I kind of settle and decide what is the right next steps now with this real nice combination of, skill sets of photography, and how can that be utilized in an exciting and new way. That's what I'm looking to try to collaborate with moving forward, which is exciting because I really don't know what that is.
In terms of social media, there's many ways to skin a cat, if you forgive the phrase. How do you decide what to invest your time into in terms of social? It makes a lot of sense, of course, that you're using Instagram. You were an early adopter. It's been a channel that you've built. You've worked very hard to build that. But there are other channels. There's Vero, there's Twitter, there's YouTube. YouTube, of course, that's more demanding in terms of time because you can spend a lot of time making a film and get half the engagement of what you probably get on Instagram, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's what I have found. But at the same time, I try not to let that, make me not make videos. I love making videos. In fact, for my next street walk, I'm only shooting video because I really, really want to get my kind of video storytelling up to par with my photography. But when it comes to making YouTube, yes, it takes an incredible amount of time, which I just struggle to find because I want to make something of value, and suddenly it turns into this full broadcast which needs a storyboard and a script. I get into advertising mode, whereas I should be a little bit freer with it. But you choose your platform. So I do have a presence on YouTube, and I do find it rewarding every time I do manage to make a post because, even if it was 6 months ago, people are still finding them and commenting them and finding certain bits and pieces very useful. So for me, it's, I try to use certain platforms for different things. YouTube is very much for me a place to give back everything that I've learned while I'm learning at the same time. Instagram probably works more like an organic portfolio for me, but I also have a very good community who gives me great feedback on stuff that I'm doing. And just going back to your point of, very early Instagram days and how I kind of handled that. Well, I've always kind of made sure I've got that hashtag ad in my caption. But the fact, you know, I can honestly say I don't think that meant anything to anyone until like 6 years later when it became a thing. And then people were like, oh, you've got to put these certain things in so that you're transparent with your audience. And my audience, I'm very thankful to say, have been so supportive about it. No negative comments about it, because I think that is part of my process when I'm trying to choose my collaborations quite carefully, and how either I can bring them back in a very honest and transparent conversation to be had with my audience.
I know there's the advertising work that you do and the clients that you work with, and there's obviously your work, and the two meld quite a lot anyway. So where did this, as you were making your pictures, as you were developing your grid and your style and we'll come to cameras soon as well, as you were developing all this, how did the low light thing develop with it? Because that's what you're very much known for now. I would expect that there are certain AM times on your clock that don't exist. Well, there'll be into the night ones, maybe 2, 3 or 4 in the morning, because your low light work is just delicious.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you very much. The low light stuff was born as part of the transition, actually, from my smartphone to a big camera.
Right.
Because, you know, I subliminally or subconsciously never realized that, you know, with my phone, I was only taking photos during the day. And then I remember I got my X-T1 and I went to Dubai. You know, I'd be shooting during the day, but at night I also had it with me. So I'd start shooting at night. So hang on a minute, I've never shot at night before. And now I can, because everything you shoot with your phone at night back in those days was just horrible. It was, you know. It
was a snowstorm, really, wasn't it?
That's a brilliant way of putting it. So yeah, that wouldn't be acceptable for me. So I did try a little bit with low light stuff. I found that it needed incredible amounts of editing to make it work with the smartphone. So when I was able to do it with my camera, I was like, hang on a minute, this is a whole new world for me. And when I started to look for the same narratives in the day that I would at night, I just found there was such a more cinematic quality to my images by night. And also, you know, it also just fades out a lot of the noise, because you're able to you find these self-made vignettes. You know, that's what I'm constantly looking for, is trying to isolate people in a very busy city. And, you know, you'll just see them suddenly spotlit within the night scene. And then I'm off on a chase trying to get them and picture them frame them in the right narrative for what I'm trying to convey.
I wonder whether you work in a different way, because I know you probably still use your smartphone for pictures. Why not? It's there and it's a fantastic tool. But I wonder, and I don't mean just technically with noise, etc., but I wonder if you feel differently when you're making a picture with, it's an X-T5 now, I know, but whether it's an X-T1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and your smartphone, is there a different process to it? Do you feel differently about a picture you make with either or?
Yes, definitely. Because I have worked with so many smartphone brands over the period of time, and I've been testing them purely for their low light abilities. You know, so as amazing as they get, I always find myself, when I want to produce the best image for low light quality to showcase their abilities, it will have to be a long exposure. I think it was only in my last and final smartphone project that I didn't have to do that, which kind of, you know, threw me off my seat a little bit. And it's still the smartphone that I use to this day. So I know that, you know, where its limitations are. It's that fact that I know there's a striking difference. If I was to go with a phone, I would come back very frustrated, because I probably miss 90% of the shots that I have in my mind. So yeah, I definitely distinguish between them, and I have not posted like a smartphone photo unless it's a sponsored post from a brand on my feed since I transitioned, because I just feel there is such a big gap for me.
XT, I know you love your XTs. Did you have you used the X100 range at all in your work?
No, I haven't. I'm gonna. It's funny you say that, because
if you can get hold of one, that is.
Yes, exactly. I was gonna put a request in and try and get hold of one, and then do a YouTube review, because it is very popular, and there's about a million reviews out there, but I've not seen that many on Night photography with it. So I think it would be quite an interesting thing to test out.
I guard my X100V as if I'm wearing a Rolex when I'm walking around London.
Yes, you should.
I wouldn't be able to get another one at the moment quite so easily. There's a strong abstract nature to your work. For example, I see pictures where you use your smartphone to make reflections. You shoot across your smartphone with your big phone, with your big camera, as we're calling it. You turn scenes upside down quite routinely. There are triptychs within single images. It's hard to reinvent wheels, but you certainly work hard to try and surprise your audience, don't you? Reframing is something you do. And you mentioned trying to find different ways of shooting iconic structures or scenes. And I love the St. Paul's one, for example. Does that come, I suppose it comes naturally to you now, but it's something you had to work very hard on. Yes,
I think, and I think it's a continuous thing, to be honest, because there's an incredible amount of, talented photographers now, more than there ever was.
Yeah.
And again, that's all thanks to, all these apps like Instagram and Vero, encouraging people just to get on there. And then, so, for me, it's, it's the challenge that I absolutely love. And, it's 99% of the time my clients come to me as well for that kind of unique perspective. They'll come and say, wow, we've not seen that before. Can you do something with this? And it's a great challenge. And let's sit down and, really think about this, because I think that's something that I like to do as well. I do like to kind of prepare myself, have a little story that I'm like trying to tell. So I'm kind of semi-focused, but open to, the other stuff that the city's going to throw at me. But no, that's really, really encouraging to hear that, my work is seen like that, because I really strive to try and bring a new look. And, what really encourages me is, then when I see a lot of people making those same frames as well, and then saying, wow, I'd never seen a London bus like that before. So, it's a simple things like that, which is great, because, it's always a lovely creative challenge.
And Mr. Whisper returns in a few weeks' time. Kev, we should mention PicTime here, our heroes. pic-time.com is the service that we both use when it comes to showing our works, our pictures to our customers. You use it, I use it.
A lot of people use it, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the most popular of the gallery systems out there right now, I would say. I think they've done remarkable over the very short period of time that they've really been around.
Yeah.
Lots of great updates. The blogging stuff is flying. I see people really using that now as well.
So tell me about the blogging thing, because I'm still not using that yet. You had a conversation with the powers that be there, which we aired, obviously. Are you using it yet?
Not yet, because I haven't really. I shot my first wedding last weekend. So when that time comes, I'll probably implement it when it's ready. But so effectively, the blogging is integrated with the PicTime system, which, as you know, when you'll do your blog posts kind of 3-4 months after the actual wedding itself, which involves going back into Lightroom, re-exporting, resizing, reframing, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. Whereas now you can actually create a very beautiful, and obviously PicTime, one of the things that they're famous for, if you like, is the fact that they take amazing care and attention to design and layout. And so, pretty much at a click of a button, you can have a beautifully laid out blog post based on the images that you've selected from your already existing gallery. So it's a winner chicken dinner all the way around. Pretty much.
Yeah, and you're gonna use both tools. You do your own blogging on Squarespace. I know that, because you have your stories that you do from your weddings and the events that you shoot. But you've decided to embrace using the PicTime one as well, haven't you? The PicTime one being for the clients only, the blog one being for the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's my plan. But you don't have to do it that way. You can, even if you have Squarespace, you can create your blog post on PicTime and embed that.
Right.
Just like you would embed the PicTime photo film, you can do that, and you can embed it in WordPress and various other places, of course. So,
embedding then the PicTime blog system into Squarespace, is that an easy one?
Yeah, it's the same way. So you've embedded a photo film from PicTime in Squarespace.
Yeah.
You just get it's called an iframe code. You just get the iframe code and it goes. From an SEO point of view, there shouldn't really be much of an impact. I wouldn't say it won't be as strong as doing it entirely on Squarespace, just because it has to pass through to the iframe. But a very small loss in that respect, compared to the great gain of doing it in PicTime is probably more powerful. But your mileage may vary on that. You obviously you will be limited to the way that PicTime does its blogging, and there are certain constraints in terms of how you kind of lay the images out and things like that. But it does look beautiful, and I think, and it's free. So it's free if you've got a PicTime account. So just have a look at it, have a play with it, and you might decide it's not for you. But I would imagine most people who regularly blog will just go, "Oh my word, why didn't I know about this before?" And then we will say, "You did know because we told you about it months ago." And you can get a free month using the code FujiCast.
All in capital letters. That was very slick, Kev. I like that.
I know. I'm a pro.
Yeah, it's only taken 3 years.
I'm actually doing my accounts as we speak.
Oh, please tell me you're not.
I am. Doing my bookkeeping. There's not a lot of it going on.
Kev. How's your radio show going?
I was back on the airwaves on Tuesday. Yeah, first time in a couple of months because I've had funerals and technical bits and stuff and what have you. So it was all right. I quite enjoyed it again. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Right. Questions. Do you want to go from Facebook? Did I do the last or did you do the last?
You did the last one. I'll do it. Yeah. Okay. So let's go to David Jennings, who says, to build a portfolio in commercial food photography, what are your thoughts on enticing businesses with a free photo shoot, but charging per photo download for the ones that they want to use? With a side condition, I thought he was going to say with a side of chips then. No. With a side condition that the photographer can sell the photos on stock photo websites. Right. There is obviously a risk they wouldn't purchase many, if any, but at least can get some long-term revenue if the photos sell.
It sounds too complicated to me, and I don't think clients think that way. Well, you might find a few that do, but I don't think enough will think that way. It's a cute idea, but I'm not sure that clients will think, "Oh, that's great. I can, peppercorn for this, and then I'll pop it up there, and I'll become a food zillionaire." There's so many food images around that are free. I'm not sure.
Well, there are, and obviously with the threat of AI and everything. But I would say if this is a brand new kind of
well, it is. It sounds direction.
It sounds like a new. It says to build a portfolio. So personally, and I know there will be a lot of grumpy old men that will frown and switch the podcast off at this point. But I would have no problems in saying, do some stuff for free. Get your toes in the soup. And get your fork in the food.
Get your toes in the soup.
Get some pictures out there.
That's disgusting.
And do it. Yeah, I mean, you're right. The then bit about stock photos and everything sounds a bit overcomplicated.
Yeah.
Absolutely, throw them on stock websites. If they sell, they sell. If they don't, they don't. But I wouldn't worry too much about just doing some free stuff in the short term to get your portfolio up and running. I've done it with my portrait stuff. So did it yesterday.
And the new site looks great.
Fireman,
You had a what in there? Fireman.
Fireman.
I didn't know you were doing those kind of shoots, Kev.
Very good looking guy. Yeah. Very good looking guy.
I always think of our friend Chris Orange at this point, who was doing lots of landscapes and other social photography work, and then his food stuff just he literally went flying because he flew to the World Cup in Qatar to photograph the VIP suites that were serving food, and he went away for the entire World Cup, and he was essentially doing food photography, but he got there through doing free jobs to start with, getting in with clients, modeling and styling food, getting in with clients, and then gradually building that portfolio until clients were throwing money at him.
Yeah. I mean, I have no problems in kind of saying when you're right at the beginning of a journey.
I think we've both done it, Kev. We've both done it.
I haven't. Yeah, absolutely, and I don't hide the fact. But yes, so yeah, but don't the stock stuff. I think you'll be hard pushed to make money from stocks images selling food unless you can find some kind of unique twist to it. But yeah, otherwise,
well, I think
crack your eggs on.
You found that unique angle. Put your toe in some soup.
That's right. Put your toe in some soup, crack your eggs on, and away you go. You'll be with Chris Orange at the next World Cup.
Absolutely sorted. What do you think, bouquet chicken? Yeah, I knew you'd agree. Burger for one. This is from Philando Jones. We haven't heard from Philando for ages. Hi, gents. It's been a while since I've submitted a question. I think the last time was way back. See, episode 6 or 8. We'll go and check. I don't mean to be somber. But here's a question for the both of you. When a client or relative of a client that you photographed fairly recently has passed, what do you do with their photos? Out of respect, would you remove them from your website and social media, or would you leave them up? Within the past year or so, 2 clients of mine, both older gentlemen who were part of a larger family photo session, had passed away. For one of those gents, the family knew the time was coming, and his wife wanted to get them together again for pictures. How would you have handled this after finding out the news? Thanks for the show and great content. Philando, I will always refer to a wedding that I shot. It must be a decade ago now, Kev. I mean, you know the one with Sarah, who came here to. I mean, I'm looking behind me where I used to have the meeting room. No studio's here now, but the meeting room was there. And I remember the day that Sarah and Wilson, her husband to be, came. I'd photographed their young daughter with them as a photo shoot when I had a studio, so that was a long time ago. And I always remember her saying to me, "Well, you know, I've got a wedding next month." I asked, "Why next month? Why the speed?" And she said, "Well, it's like this. I've got a brain tumor. It's going to get me. I won't get it." I shot the wedding. She did pass, sadly, even though she battled so hard and so bravely against this, taking surgery in France, I believe, as well. And but she did pass, and I remember making that phone call to her husband and having a chat and saying, "Look, I'll take it was a photo film that I made. I'll take that down." And he said, "Don't you dare." She was the biggest show-off. She would love the fact that it's still there, and it still is to this day. And there's more stories that go with that story. But not everybody is going to feel that way, are they?
No, obviously not everybody will feel that way. But I wouldn't, for weddings, it's unlikely that people are going to let you know that somebody's passed away. Put it that way.
Yeah.
They might do, but it's unlikely. And so, yeah, it would only really cross my mind if somebody actually said to me, "Look, we'd prefer it if those pictures came down."
Yeah.
In which case, I would honour their request.
Of course you would.
But I wouldn't, even if I found out on kind of social media or something like that somebody had passed away, sadly, I wouldn't then go to that client and, or their relatives and say, "Would you like me to take that blog post down?" I just wouldn't.
You just leave it there, yeah?
I would just leave it there. Yeah, I don't think, it's... it's a bit of a tricky one, but I just, you can't just take things down for everything, otherwise there'll be a reason for everything to bring something down, won't it? So, no, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't.
So I leave it there. If they ask, fine. If not,
yeah.
And actually, I would imagine some people would get great comfort from looking online and saying, there's Dad, still there. There could be that effect as well, couldn't there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I find it unlikely that people would want them to be removed. Put it that way.
Thanks, Philando, and we'll see you in another 340 episodes.
Yeah, something a bit more cheery next time, mate, please.
Thanks, Philando. But it is a serious subject, and I'm sure that you are not the only one, Philando, thinking about that. And I know I have myself at times when I've heard news like that, but I've, as Kev said, I've not taken it down. But I would, obviously, if I were asked. I mean, the story that you've recounted so many times now. We probably don't need to hear the story again, but of the grandma that you photographed, her very last photograph, literally last photograph made of her on a wedding day before she passed at the wedding. Did you ever have that on a blog?
Yeah. Oh, not necessarily the one immediately before, but she was in the blog post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's never come down?
It's not on the website now because once it was not one of the ones that made the cut from when I moved across to Squarespace. However, it might go back on there because I've recently got all my archives back in put all my ducks in one archive line again. Oh, really? So maybe when I'm re-editing stuff, it'll pop back up again at some point, and I'd have no problems doing that. Yeah.
Okay. Right, yours. Facebook.
Right, a quick one from a QQ from Steve Ford, who is also in New Zealand. The annual, biannual, monthly, fortnightly, on the hour, age-old question. Why can't I shoot tethered with my X-T3 or any other flavour of Fujifilm with Lightroom?
I was going to say, I don't think that's one we've had too many times, is it?
I don't think so. And you can, but you need to get a plug-in. No, I've never done this, so don't shout at me from New Zealand if it doesn't work. But there is a plugin, and it's erotically called Fujifilm Tether Shooting Plugin for Adobe Photoshop Lightroom.
Catchy.
Yeah, and you can. We'll link to it in the show notes and stuff. But if you just bang into Google "shoot tethered Lightroom Fujifilm," right, then you'll get to the page. It's a Fujifilm plugin. It's not a it's not a third-party thing. So that should do it.
These are QQs. There's one here, but I think this is something about. I recently wrote an article for Petapixel addressing the fact that AI images are not photographs.
Oh, no, it's an interview request.
Oh, it's an interview request. Ooh, are you going to do that, Kev, or me?
Yeah, we need to speak about that. But yes,
it was actually aimed at you. It was almost like Kevin.
Yes, because I've had a pre-conversation about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall I leave that? I'll slide that into the Kev's looking after this file. And this one's more of a comment, really. It's from Was Alexander. We love our X-Pros. We have one each and shoot weddings with them. We? Who's we? Oh, Was out of M and Was.
Yeah, M and Was. I know them. They're from Hull, I think, or somewhere up there.
mwas.co. Let me just click on their website. Oh, yeah. I do like a website, Kev, that the first thing you see is a big, brash, emotional picture.
Yeah.
So going back, we love our X-Pros. We have one each and shoot weddings with them, and XH1s. I'm hard on mine. M, my fiancée, treats hers well. Her sub monitor. This is. I mean, if there was an age-old, if there was a sort of a regular question at the moment, it would be that of the sub monitor, wouldn't it?
Mm.
Her sub monitor has just started to go wonky. It started off freezing, then it moved to breaking up and changing colour. I suspect it's the ribbon that links the screen to the camera and it's not reliable enough. I don't flip my screen down as much as her, and maybe that's why mine's lasted longer. Luckily, still covered by warranty, doesn't put us off the cameras, but I suspect the fault is a bit more common than it appears. Now, we haven't had this issue, have we, Kev? But then, do you do a lot of flipping of screens?
No. Not at all.
Maybe that's why we're not having it, because I don't either. I mean, I get the trousers dirty, and there's many times I'm thinking, why don't I just flip up the screen when I'm lying on the floor in the mud?
Yeah, I mean, this clearly is an issue for some people, although you and I have been lucky enough not to, and was, by the sounds of it, also. But some people are getting it, and, if it's within warranty, then they should fix it. But yeah, I mean, I guess, it's a moving part, isn't it? I suppose It's the same as any camera. Whether it's an X Pro or whether it's an XT5 or whether it's a Sony or a Ricoh or whatever that's got a flippy screen, the more aggressive you are with that and the more you move that piece, the more chance it's going to get damaged at some point. It's like a car door, isn't it? But I don't know.
What do you mean it's like a car door? What do you do? Get out your window so you don't break your car door?
Car doors get squeaky, don't they? And, and they get bashed and, sometimes they need to have their hinges replaced and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Your window don't open.
Yeah, that's true. XH2S, though, I love the articulation. And I get the feeling that that's a screen that won't suffer. Oh, God, I've just given it the... I'm going to touch wood as I'm saying that, because the articulation works in an entirely different way. I don't feel it's as... I always feel a little bit... I don't like lifting or tilting the screen on my X100V. I feel it's a bit... no, it's moving. I don't know what you feel about the different articulation systems.
Well, I must admit, I'm not... I don't articulate the screens that often, although... Okay. I suppose I do it more on my X100 than I do on anything else.
Right.
and you've been using that quite a bit recently. So yeah, I mean, no, I don't fret about these things. I suppose, I mean, I was always kind of protected a little bit by being a Fujifilm ambassador, knowing that I'd always get things repaired and stuff should I need them, at a discount as well, and that's kind of not the case now. So I need to be a little bit more careful, perhaps, with my stuff. But I've never had to send anything back, even when that's typical, isn't it? When I was an ambassador,
don't say. I've just.
I'll open my cupboard tomorrow and literally everything will fall onto the floor.
That's it. Oh dear.
Andreas.
Yeah, I seem to have dropped my entire camera collection.
Everything's on the floor.
It's all fallen out the cupboard. Right, I think we've got time for one more. Are we a bit early, Kev? We might have time for two more.
Okay, well, I've got another reasonably quick one that comes up occasionally. Is it my go or your go?
Your go.
Dusko Petrovic.
Yep.
That's a catchy name. I like that. Dusko Petrovic. Could be a DJ. Just curious, how do you two, Neale and Kevin, know each other? Maybe it was mentioned in some of the earlier episodes, which it was. I started listening just before the pandemic, and I never went over the old episodes.
Well, Kev was my second husband.
Neale was my first wife.
Yeah, work that one out. Wasn't it Alistair that introduced us? No, or did you introduce me to Alistair?
I think I introduced you to Alistair.
Or did we meet? Did our eyes meet across a crowded floor at a Jeff Askoff convention? Was it that?
No, I don't think so. As I remember it, Alistair and I had been chatting. I'd met Alistair. Yeah. So Alistair Freeman, by the way, who we have interviewed him also on the show.
We should fill in the gaps. Yeah.
I'd been chatting to him because he lived near me, and then I think we got in touch with you for kind of to talk about a referral thing. And then I think the first time we actually met was at a Jeff Askoff workshop.
You did them in Watford, in sunny Watford.
Watford, yeah. At the Hilton Hotel in Watford.
It was the Hilton Hotel in Watford, yeah. With a BP garage just down the way because the machine that sold the chocolate at night never worked.
That's right, yeah, that's right. I had a hangover.
Yeah, I think most of our line of seats probably did. I think there was a bit in the middle where if Jeff would have looked out, he'd have seen droopy eyes. Not because he wasn't doing a good talk, because he was.
Yeah, no, they were excellent workshops.
Yeah, they were,
I must admit.
Moving on very quickly, Garish. Hi, Kev. Hi, Neale. Though I've been silent of late, I do tune in. I confess to feeling crestfallen when the topic of you not being a Fujifilm ex-photographer came on the podcast. Though I see you've gained a black belt and a horse. Yeah. How is Star?
Yeah. We're taking on a trailer tomorrow to her first jump-in show.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, I tell you what, I bet Rose is really excited.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Is she a bit nervous? Is she a bit nervous?
It probably is, yeah. She's done lots of equestrian stuff before, but on other people's horses.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to take my GFX, I think, try and get some pictures.
I'm surprised you'd use the GFX at a horse event.
Yeah, why not?
Were you?
Just something to do, innit?
I suppose so.
I mean, I'm not going to be tracking the horses around the thing, but I'll plant myself in front of one of the jumps, not obviously on the track, but on the side. Yeah. And my plan is to pre-focus on the actual jump itself, use my f1.7 lens, and see if I can get the eyes of the horse in focus.
Well, that's going to be there's your challenge for the day, Kev.
Yeah, it's a hell of a challenge. Yeah. The only problem is my widest lens is 45mm.
Right.
So I'm going to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see.
So you got a black belt and a horse. He's pleased about that. You did actually recently address again the situation of not being an ex. What did you write in your piece? I'm an ex photographer, so to speak.
I'm an ex photographer.
Yeah. So now you truly are an ex photographer. Yeah. Anyway, I don't use your presets, so shortly after purchasing them, I embarked on film photography, which has evolved into black and white film photography, which encompasses 98% of what I do, but I will continue buying your presets as eventually I will resume digital photography. This feels like a personal missive to you, Kev.
It's lovely. I like it. Yeah. You can read more of these
I'll carry on. I found, and he did say here, actually, you are way bigger than a label or a brand. Oh, Kev.
Oh, I am way bigger.
You've become
I tell you now, for the last 2 months, I've been like a walrus reintroduced to the sea.
Oh, just
blah, 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 blah.
Are you having that same shirt problem that I'm having at weddings?
Yeah.
For me, it's the trousers, and it feels a bit uncomfortable. I may have to go out and get some special trousers just for a couple of weeks while I concentrate on svelte self. Anyway, I recently received 2 honourable mentions in the Mono Awards. I attached them below in a recent image to perplex Neale's bouquet chicken. Bouquet chicken. What do you think of that particular image there? Oh, you like? No, he likes it. You're fine. Have you seen these images? Because they are.
Yes.
They are for you.
Yeah, they're very good, and we will again. We'll put them on the show page. But yeah, I did see that email, and they are excellent film. It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, this one's literally. I mean, this looks like Cartier-Bresson, the man himself, could have made it.
Yeah, I thought they were really beautiful.
Fantastic picture. Anyway, regards to Gemma, Albie, Rosa, and you, Kev. And here it says, and Neale. so it wasn't a question. It was a bit of an honourable mention for the Mullins. Well, you're welcome to send those sort of things in. Right. But I think actually that's about all we have time for this week, for the next couple of biannual, bi-monthly, bi-weekly. One day, Kev, when we've both won lottos, we'll go back to just doing it weekly. It's much easier to get the right phrase.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
Questions. What's your Facebook looking like? Do you need a bit of a top up?
Always need a top up. And if you get the timing right and you are the most recent post, you're guaranteed to get your question on the show. We do have some through previous weeks that I still have to work through, which I will do.
Yeah. Well, we definitely need some more email ones. That's for sure. So if you can send them to click@fujicast.co.uk. click@fujicast.co.uk. Otherwise, it's going to be a long haul over the summer. As long as it's with Lufthansa, he says.
What are you on about?
Well, we're nearly there.
My window now, pouring with rain, howling with wind.
Oh, yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I took Albie to football on Wednesday. We went to Weston-super-Mare Wednesday when it was the storms. And then he had his one and only midweek football match. They lost 12-1, bless them.
Oh, no.
And it was brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Oh, I bet it was miserable when it came off on that one.
Well, they all were a bit, but I think they were just glad to get off.
Yeah, I bet.
As I said to the woman stood next to me, I said, what they don't realise is much worse for us.
That's a very good point. My friend Sue Sayre calls Weston-super-Mare. She calls it Weston-super-Mud. She lives there, so she should know. Right, that's it. Have a lovely couple of weeks, and we'll speak to you in a couple of weeks' time. Bye, Kev.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.